Hi there, this is Scott. I'm not in my normal studio because, well, I'm moving. We're packing things up. We've already started showing the house, so all this clutter has to go away. We've already picked out a new house. It's got some great space for games and filming board games with Scott, but we're not in there yet. We haven't closed. So I'm in this weird point. I've packed up my studio, so it's a bit of a problem. Thankfully, Matt Carlson came to the rescue. He's recorded a video for you on, well, World of Warcraft, the board game. This book's for the multiplayer online game, the addictive game, but the board game, well, it's a long game, takes about 5 hours, but I do enjoy playing it. Thankfully, Matt's come along and has decided to explain it for you. He's the Board Games with Scott correspondent that's filling in for me now. Hopefully by next month I'll have a new studio, a new place of shooting, some interesting stuff going on, and we'll continue the show from there. So until then, look for me in your local cardboard box. By the way, anyone want to buy a house?
As you can see, I'm not Scott. My name's Matt, and I'm here as a guest correspondent to talk about one of the board games that I really enjoy playing, World of Warcraft, the board game. And as you can see, this is a huge game. In fact, on the back, over 1,000 parts. Right there on the back, you can't really see it, but it's down there. 1,000 parts. Okay, there's a lot of things in this game. So some people might be put off by that, thinking it's like too hard to handle or too complex, but it's actually a pretty fun game. So let's open it up, take a look at all the different parts that are in there, and then I also have in this the expansion, the Shadow of War expansion, and we'll take a look at that too at the end and talk about the whole game. All right? So what do we got inside this big box? You open this baby up, and it's the usual, one of the first things you see. You've got a nice rule book, lots of pretty colored pictures and diagrams talking about everything that you can do, explaining things. It's a pretty good written rule book. There's just one or two areas that are a little complicated. One of the downsides of the rule book, it's a little bit hard to find things when you're playing the game, so it could have used a little bit better index. There are a bunch of player character cards, depending on what character you want to play. This one looks like it's the fighter, and each character card has a red side and a blue side. Most of them do anyway, and that means there's two sides in the game, and you can play a given character for whichever side you want. There are, I think, 3 of these cards here that represent the big bad guys you can fight at the end of the battle. So these are the big bad guys, and you can use those. And then, of course, we come to the giant board. That's here. All right. A nice big board here. And there is lots of they're all from different areas. They each have different colors. The red up here is where the Horde starts. The blue down here is where the Alliance starts. There's 2 different sides, and you take a look at that. And we'll take a look at a lot of the different parts of the board in a few minutes when we talk about the game. And then the game has lots and lots of tiny plastic figures. There's a whole bunch of gray ones that represent the different people you can play. You're going to play, it's kind of a role-playing game, so you're going to play a particular kind of person or a class of person, and then you're going to gain powers over time. And then you and your friends are going to be in one team versus another team, and you're going to take on lots and lots of different monsters. And let me tell you, there are piles and piles of monsters. Lots and lots of monsters. You got big old character guys. This is like some big old fighter kind of guy, little tiny gnome person, and they all kind of size. You can compare that to some of the monsters you might take on, you know, and they can come around and hopefully you beat them. Otherwise, sometimes you lose, or even, you know, sometimes a little guy, he's really powerful, maybe beat up the bad guy. Yay! Things like that. So it's pretty fun, and you got all the plastic pieces. So lots of plastic pieces, and then finally there are lots and lots of different cards, and the cards represent different things. For instance, if you have a character, you're going to have 2 different decks of cards. You're going to have a deck of cards that represents all the different powers or spells, if you're a magic person, that you can buy, and abilities that you gain, and then you equip these and things like that. And you have this stack of cards that represent all the different what's called feats or talents that you can earn, and you get one of these every time you go up a level. And so between the 2 of them, that's going to flesh out what kind of character you are, what kind of powers you do, and things like that. And there's a deck of both of those decks for every kind of character you can play. There are also stacks of cards that represent magic items that you can earn and find and buy and sell and things like that. There's a lot of different grades of quality. This blue square is better than a circle item, things like that. So you have decks of different magic items. Then there is the main decks that kind of drive the pace of the game a little bit, and these are event decks. And so the event deck here, right, has a whole bunch of different things that might happen as you go through the game. And that'll keep the game different every time. Different events happen as you move along. And finally, you have the quest decks. The quest decks are different adventures that your characters can go on, and they range from easy to hard, and you choose kind of how hard you want them to be. And when you go and solve these, then you earn rewards, as in either experience points or gold or items or things like that, which then make you more powerful as time goes on. And the goal, which is kind of the overview all rolled into one, is to go on and beat the big bad guy at the end by becoming more powerful. Okay, there are lots and lots of cards, but one other thing there's also a lot of in the game is there are lots and lots of little markers, and the three most important ones are these little drops of blood symbols here. They represent your health of your character, and then the energy tokens, which is either like your mana for your magic user, or like energy if you're like a fighter kind of person, and then gold. And gold, lots and lots of gold, and gold is how you buy things. So I'm rich, ha ha ha, sort of thing. So you buy items with this, and you can sell items for gold too. Then there's a pile and lots of other kinds of markers to mark everything, all kinds of stuff, little markers going on. It's good stuff. The game comes with a bunch of dice. Everybody loves rolling dice. And there are 7 dice of 3 different colors. The number is important. We'll get back to it later. But there's green dice, red dice, and blue dice. All 8-sided, so that's kind of a little more fun than the normal 6-sided die. And they're very important for combat. And in fact, messing with the dice is really what all the game is about when you're in combat. So it's kind of a combat kind of game, and it's all about messing with the dice. So here's an example of the quest deck. This is the Horde deck, as you can see from the Horde symbol, and it's got a gray background, which means this is the easiest kind of quest you get. And you get these at the start, and then you can't draw from this pile anymore. Well, if you turn it over, there's a bunch of different information on there. There may be a blue color guy or not, and then there may be one or more green or red colored guys, and these are the monsters that appear on the board. The blue ones really are just monsters that get in the way. And so you just generally try and walk around the blue monsters, and the green ones or the red ones are the monsters you actually have to go out and kill to get the reward. And then you go down there and you can see what the reward is. This one rewards you with 6 gold pieces, 5 experience points, and then 2 white triangles. And what that means is it says 1, 1 on the triangle. So that means you draw 1 white triangle and you keep it, and another white triangle and you keep it. If it had a big white triangle with a 2 in it, you would draw 2 white triangle cards, and you get to choose which one of those you want to keep. And down at the bottom, it says for level 1, so if you're higher than level 1, then you get penalized a little bit. You don't get quite as much experience. And all this is shared between more than one person if you want to complete a quest with a friend. Okay? And then you can go on to higher levels, the higher level ones here in different colors. If we take a look at a red one, now we see that there's 2 different, a red and a green guy. You got to fight them both. All right, because they're not blue. And there's lots of, you get 21 gold. Here's a reward. This is for level 5 people. You're probably not going to fight these guys unless you're in a group. Unless very, very end of the game, you might be able to fight them as a level 5 character. So, one of the things you're going to spend a lot of your time looking at is your character card. And your character card has a lot of different things on it, and you're either going to use the blue side if you're the Alliance team, or the red side if you're on the Horde team. And each card comes with a picture of who you look at, and then you can use that to figure out which grade piece is yours. There's a spot to keep track of your health. There's a spot where you keep all your money. And there's a spot where you keep all your energy. And then everybody's got a little special bonus depending on what race you are. And then there are slots where you can put your spells and equipment and things like that up in here, and you're limited to just these slots. These are the only things you can have. You can have things not active and put them in your bag or in your spell book or something, but the only things you can be using are the things that are out here. There's also a little spot down below where you can put talents. The talent cards modify these spells up here. Usually they don't give you special abilities. Some of them do give you little special abilities, but these are talents. You get 1 every time you go up a level to level 2, 3, 4, and 5. So if you're at the 5th level, you can have up to 4 different talents going on. And meanwhile, even at level 1, if you can afford it, you could fill all this up, though. All right. So, and there's also a nice little track up here to keep track of your level, first, second, third, fourth, fifth level, and you put a little token on there, and it shows which level you're currently at. So this one has a 3 and a 6. 3 red means I have 3 health, and the 6 purple means I have 6 energy to spend on my spells. This is a warlock, if you know about the computer game. And so warlocks cast a lot of spells. They can have these little pet things, and so they have a lot of energy and not very much life. And then when you want to, you buy things, and then there's a couple different things to be worried about. If it has the symbol here, the energy symbol, then it can go on anything that has an energy symbol slot, all right? But that means it's something that you cast whenever it's time to cast it, okay? And so you would spend 1 energy, it says here, anytime you're going to cast it, and then you get the bottom effect. Okay. Here I have one that is always on here, this little symbol right there, all right, the I symbol or whatever it is, and that means you spend energy to put it on the character, and it has to go in an I slot, open slot that has the I symbol. And then you have this ability all the time, and you don't have to spend for it. So for this one, I can spend 1 energy and I get a blue die to roll in combat. And this one, I spend the energy to put it in the slot, and then I don't have to spend any more, and I will always get a green die, and I get 1 extra reroll when I do combat. So here's your character card. You're going to keep track of things, and then when you go up levels, you're going to put in your talents down here. So one of the talents I would go, if I want to go up to 2nd level here, I might get this demonic embrace here. And so then I would put it in here, and that adds that actually adds 2 life to my total, but it subtracts 1 from my rerolls. And then when I'm 2nd level, I might come in and buy this spell here, which is corruption, which adds what's called attrition. We'll talk about later, but that's got an instant cast, so I have to spend $6 to buy it, okay? But the attrition here, that will only happen when I spend the energy in combat to cause that to happen. So that's really where all the die rolling is coming from here. You roll dice, and a lot of these things will modify die rolls and things like that, and it can get a little complex, but it's a fun part of the game, is the combat. At the bottom of the board, you have the turn track with a little turn marker. You start on turn number 1. And as you go along, you can see that as you go, each new turn, there's sometimes little things that might happen. So, for instance, on turn number 2, that is when the Alliance moves, they draw a little white triangle object and put it in the store that they could buy later, in the merchant deck. And then on the 4th turn, again on the Alliance turns, this would be the Horde's turn, and then Alliance turns, there would be an event card drawn, and so on. You go on and you get event cards from time to time, and then eventually the merchant cards that get put in the deck get better and better and better. And then you go along, go all the way up to 30. Okay, 30 turns. So each side will get 15 turns, and then the game ends. If you don't fight the big bad guy by the end of the 30th turn, then and defeat him, then the game ends, and you go into a player versus player combat where each side just dukes it out with each other. On the left side of the board, we've got the experience track. Each character puts their little marker down here, and then as you get experience points, you go up a level. So here you need 1, 2, 3, 4 experience to get to level 2, and so then you need a little bit more to get to level 3 and go on up, and you go all the way up to level 5. And if you hit level 5, there's nothing more for you to do except get more toys and things. But and usually the game ends before everybody gets to 5 anyway. But that's the highest level you can get and get all your powers and things like that. Like any good map, there's a key. Graveyards are where you come back from being dead, and there's cities for each side, as well as flight paths for both sides. And the flight paths help you get around the board a lot faster. And then on each corner, there's 2 of these, which is great, 1 for each side. There's the combat area, which we're going to go into detail, because that's the hardest thing to understand about the game. And once you understand how combat works, then everything else falls into place. There's a region key, so you can match the colors for each region. If you want to look up which color is which region, it's not so helpful. But the merchant deck, and this is where you keep all the cards that you might want to buy if you go to town and use a merchant action to buy things. And that is the entire board. Nice and big. To set up the game, you have to flip up a couple of quests for each side. This is the Alliance side, so you'd flip over one of these quests, and then you look and see what you've got to do. So you've got a blue person here on the Hillsbad Hills, and there's a little part of the map handy, so you can see over in the blue part here, There's Hills Brad Hills, so we're going to put a blue guy there. Those are just kind of guys who get in the way. And then also down here we've got we have a knoll, a green knoll, and that's in the Dalaran Ruins. And the green or the red guys are the guys you have to kill to get the reward down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Dalaran Ruins, and we can see that's kind of the whitish area. We go over here to Dalaran Ruins, look in the white. There it is. So we're going to put the green guy down, and there's the knoll. And because it's the quest guy, we're going to put this blue marker down. All right. And if you had a quest for, say, the opposite side, the Horde side, then you'd have a red marker down. Sometimes there's a blue guy in the same square. These guys are always separate. These blue guys are never part of the quests. Okay? And so once you do that enough times, you get blue guys and red guys and green guys all scattered over the map, and you're ready to play the game. So how do you actually play the game? Well, to play the game, you take your figure piece, you put it on your home base, either the Alliance or the Horde, and then you each alternate taking turns, and each side gets 2 actions to do on their turn, and you just keep running around and you kill things, and sometimes if you succeed on quests, you take out quests, and then if you succeed quests, you get experience, which will cause you to increase in level, which makes you more powerful. Also, when you get quests, you will get rewards and items and things. And basically, you run around and you get 2 actions every turn, and those each action hopefully will move you further towards getting more and more powerful. And then finally, at the end of the game, you race over to fight the big bad guy. And the first team to beat the bad guy wins the game. And so in a sense, it's really a race. You're always trying to be most efficient with your 2 actions as you can and be more efficient than the other team. And if nobody beats the bad guy before the game ends, which is 30 turns, then 15 turns for each side, then the 2 sides go at it and battle one another. And so again, it's in your favor to be more powerful, have more powerful gadgets and toys at the end. And it's kind of a nice flow to the game because you fight off little tiny wimpy guys in the beginning, and then by the end you're fighting like these big bad guys at the end, and getting more and more cooler toys at the very end. So that's kind of what you're trying to do in the game. Let's take a look at what might happen on a given turn and the mechanics of individual steps. So here we are near the start of the game, and I'm sitting here in South Shore, okay? And what I have to do on my turn is I get 2 actions. I get 2 different actions. A lot of different things you can do. One is you can move, and if you move, you get 2 steps. If there's a place with a flight point, right, with a little wing symbol, then I can hop between 2 flight points using one of my 2 steps. And so what I'm going to do is take 2 steps down to here, and I'll explain that in a minute. The other thing I can do during my turn is fight something, and I'm going to fight this guy here in just a minute because he's got a little blue symbol. That means it's an Alliance quest, and I'll get some prizes and experience or whatever for fighting him. Third thing you can do is you can rest, and if you can rest wherever you want, and that will allow you to gain your hit points, your energy, your health back. Or you can also stop in a town, and if you rest in a town, it's really, really good. But there's another thing you can do in town. It's called a town action. And a town action will allow you to buy your spells. It'll allow you to buy things from the store, and it'll allow you to rest up a little bit too. You can also buy your spells if you're resting out, if you take a pause outside of a town, in which case you can just buy things.
Hi, this is Scott. So I wanted to step in and give you a quick overview then. On your turn, you get 2 actions. And the way the turns work, by the way, is that the team has everyone on the turn take 2 actions. You can do it in whatever order you want. So you can talk as a team and plan out who should take an action when. But the team takes all of their actions, and those actions can be a travel action where you move 2 spaces, but you have to stop if you meet up with bad guys. A rest action, if you rest anywhere on the board, you get twice your level in health and energy tokens, but if you rest in a town, you get 3 times your level. A challenge action, where you fight something, you fight a group of things. A training action, where out in the field you upgrade your character. Or a town action, which we've talked about. You get to heal a little bit, you get to buy and sell stuff, and you get to do a training action where you upgrade your character, but you do that in a town space.
So what I decided to do for my turn here is I started here and I took my move turn to move down here. I could have gone up here, and I didn't want to go all the way over to here. To get to this spot, I would have had to move too far, and I had these blue guys in the way. Anytime you move into a spot where there's a blue character, you have to stop. okay? And then you have to fight those guys as soon as you can, like on your next action. So if I moved into here, I would have to stop, and then I would end up fighting this guy on my very next action of this turn. And since blue guys don't give you anything for fighting and defeating them, then there's no really point. I want to avoid the blue guys as much as possible. So I move down here, and now I'm going to fight this green guy. He's a Murloc, so I need to find a green Murloc on a table. There's a nice handy table for each character, and we're going to have a fight. So let's look up what a green Murloc can do. There's a handy chart for monster reference chart for both sides. There's two of these, so each side can have one, and it lists every monster in the game. On the back side, it gives you sort of a quick overview of the different actions you can do. You can also fight, one action that I forgot to mention, you can also fight other players. But here we've got all the different monsters. So if I'm going to fight a green Murloc, I go and look for the Murlocs, and then I look over here for the green column to see how powerful they are. So let's take a look at that. So here is a Murloc, and usually there's a special ability each monster might have, and then here's the listing of each different kind of Murlocs. You've got green Murlocs, red ones, and blue ones. Blue ones are the independent ones. They never have anything to do with quests, but they're usually the hardest to fight, so you try and avoid them because they don't give you anything. The greens and the reds are slightly harder than greens, and those have to do with quests. So threat number, okay, 5 for green Murlocs. That means I have to roll a 5 or better in order to hit a Murloc with any of my dice, on my 8-sided dice. So 5s are pretty easy. There's some 4s and things out there, but 5s are pretty basic threats. There's things that are like 7 or 8 threat towards the end of the game. Attack, that's how much damage the Murloc can do to me if I don't kill it. And then finally there's health, 2 health. All right, and so a Murloc has 5 threat, 3 attack, and 2 health. And what I'm going to do, to give you a little better feel for combat, I'm going to go in and do a combat against 2 Murlocs, a green and a red at the same time. So I'm going to try and fight 2 Murlocs, and I may die, but we'll see what happens. Okay, in which case, what happens is the attack gets combined when it's going to hit me, and the health can get, that's how much I have to do 6 damage to kill them both. You'll notice that the threats are always the same, and so you never fight a red and a green with a blue. You're either fighting reds and greens together or blues together. So I'm going to fight the Murlocs with a 5 and with my character. So let's see what combat looks like. So here's my character card. I'm getting ready for combat. So what I want to do is I'm look all over my character card to see what attributes I have. I'm now 2nd level, so I have 3 health and 6 energy, but I have a special ability for being 2nd level that I decided to go with this one, which gives me 2 more health, but I lose 1 reroll. Okay, so we just have to keep that in mind, but I have a lot of health now. That's kind of nice. So I look over and see what I can do in my dice pool. How many dice can I roll? And so this one says add 1 blue to your dice pool. Well, there's also a cost of 1 energy, so I'm going to have to spend 1 energy, and then I can add 1 blue die to my dice pool. Over here, it says corruption. If I want to do this, end of my reroll step, I can do add to attrition. So I'm going to do that later when I get to the reroll step. Demon armor, add a green to your dice pool. Because this is always on, I don't have to spend the energy. I spent the energy to put this on, so I get to add 1 green to my dice pool. Down here, I have this little thing. This gives me the ability to spend 1 energy instead of losing 1 health once per combat round. We won't worry about that until I take damage. And here I'm carrying a little default staff, add a red die to my combat pool. Boom. Finally, I have the Gravestone Scepter. This is my wand. It adds 1 blue to my dice pool, so I have another blue die. And then the end of my dice pool step, I can spot 1 to do some special powers. So there's some special powers in these 2. This gives me reroll 2, that gives me reroll 1. And so together I have reroll 3, but I have to subtract a reroll, so now I have reroll of 2. That'll be important later. And I have attrition, oh, here's another reroll. So I have reroll of 3, I have lots of reroll, and I have attrition of 2, which are all going to come in later when I pay for that. I haven't paid for that yet. Okay, so let's look at the dice. I've got blue dice, red dice, and green dice. The dice are really nicely color-coded because the blue dice basically is range damage or instant damage. Damage is going to happen right away before the monsters can come back at you. Green and red damage, both dice will both contribute to preventing you from taking damage. Okay, green will always prevent, so it's like a defense dice, right? And the red is sort of like fighting with hand-to-hand combat or swords or whatever. So not only does it cause damage, but it also prevents you from taking some damage. So this is more universal. So you might say, okay, why would you ever want green dice? Well, there's two reasons. One is there's a limited number of dice in the game. And this is where people often make a mistake in the game, is there's 7 of each color dice. And you can only have 7 is the maximum you can ever roll. And so a lot of times there's powers that cause you to lose 1 die or change 1 die to another color. You have to keep track of how many dice you've used up. And so you're never going to be able to roll more than 21 dice, and that's really rare. That would be like 7 of each color. And so even though I might have the ability to get like 9 blue dice, because I'm kind of a spellcaster person, I would still not be able to roll that many. I'd only get to roll 7, and that's all I'd get to roll, and that's it. Okay, so here I have my 4 dice I'm going to roll. The other cool reason that even though red seems better than green because it goes offense and defense, green is less likely to cause you problems. In fact, if we look back at my handy dandy Murloc, okay, let's look at the Murloc. There it is. This causes 1 damage for every time I roll a red or a blue 1. Okay, it's very rare for the green dice to ever do bad things, but sometimes when you roll low on the red and the blue dice, you're penalized for it. And so that's another good reason for green dice, is that green dice will almost never cause you problems. Okay, you won't ever have to say naughty words about rolling really low numbers with the green dice. Okay, so here are all my dice. Let's go to the combat board and see what's going on. Remember, the threat of my Murloc is 5, so I want to roll 5s with this. All right, here we go. We're rolling the dice, rolling it. Here we go. We roll them out. Okay, beautiful. So what I see here is I have an 8, which is great. I have a 5 red, which is good, and a 6. Okay, the 3 missed entirely. Okay, now I can look at, line them up here. I can look at my abilities and see if there's any special abilities I have. For instance, I have lots and lots of reroll. Okay, so I can, actually, the end of my dice pool, I can spot 1 8. And roll an additional blue. When you spot a dice, you look at your dice and you say, okay, do I have anything that meets the criteria? Then I have to set it aside. That's still part of my maximum dice, 7 dice, but I can't use it for anything else now. It will count as a hit, but I will use it to activate another power. So when you spot a die, you can only use that die to spot 1 thing. So I couldn't spot this die again to do something else cool. So here we go. And then I'm going to roll an extra blue. Boom, there's a 7. Okay. I also have a power that will spot 1 8 to get a reroll +2, but I don't have, I would rather spot this one. I'd rather spot this to get an extra die than to get extra reroll. All right, so I've done the end of my dice pool step, which is that first roll. Okay, and now I get the reroll step, and like I said, I had 2 reroll. I'm added up wrong before. And I have -1 reroll from another one. So I only get to reroll 1 thing once, so I'm going to reroll this. And it was a 7. You rolled it off screen. You can just trust me on that. So I'm doing really well. Okay, got everything hit. At the end of my reroll step, I'm now going to pay 2 energy. Okay, so I'm going to pay 2 more energy, activate another one of my little powers, spend 2 energy. That gives me 2 attrition. Okay, so I've done all the cool little funky things I can with dice. Let's see what happens. As you can see, there's a defense box, a damage box, and an attrition box, and that's how everything's going to work. There are 2 different kinds of tokens we're going to use here. We've got green ones, handy dandy green ones, and these little red ones. Okay, they represent hits. The green ones, okay, represent blocked hits by your green dice. So I have 1 green die. I'm going to put 1 block in the defense box. I have 3 blue dice hits, and so they go in, they're directly in the damage box. And you can even see there's a cool little blue die here next to a hit down here. There's a green die next to green one. It's all very visual. And a red die next to that one. So, of course, the red die and a little red hit, so I'm going to put that in there for that hit. So that's all the damage I did. Down here, it says attrition value, so that goes into the attrition box. Okay, this is sort of like slow damage over time or whatever. If you've played the computer game, you would know about that a little bit. Okay, so there's everything I've done, the attrition that I bought and the dice that I rolled, and now we apply this damage to the monster. So if you remember, okay, going back one more time, there is our handy dandy Murloc. Okay, I had said I wanted a green and a red one. I'm fighting 2 of them. Okay, so the green one is a health of 2, red one is a health of 4. The first thing you do is you apply the damage to any monster. Okay, if this is enough to kill one, you can go ahead and kill it. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to apply 2 damage and kill the green one. This green one is dead because we killed its 2 health before it even came back at us. Okay, so now the red one's the only one left. So now that the blue damage has been done, then it will deal damage back to me. And the red one will come back to hit me, and he's going to attack me and do 5 damage. Well, here is where the defense pool comes in. So he's going to do 5 damage, and I subtract 2 off of it because I have 2 in here. So I take 3 damage, which normally would have killed me. Okay? But I had that special ability, gave me a little extra health, so I'm still alive. Okay, now that I've taken my damage, everything spills into this damage box here, okay, and the green goes away. But because 4 damage is enough to kill it, and it's already in the damage box, this 4 damage will kill the monster before he will have a chance to swing at me, and so it will die, and we don't even have to start rolling. I don't have to roll anything for the next round because it's going to die anyway. So that's kind of what happens. The blue dice go in here and does damage immediately, and sometimes you can kill a monster right away. If you don't kill it right away, then it gets to attack back, and whatever goes in the defense box, okay, green and red, okay, will subtract from how much damage you're going to take. And then if there's anything in the attrition, what happens once you've taken some damage, green doesn't do anything anymore, and all the reds in here and the reds in the attrition will spill in there, and that will possibly finish it off at the end there. Although technically it's always finishing off the next, the beginning of the next round, but that's how much damage is in there. So that is combat in a nutshell, and it's really all the special powers of each character have to do with, say, if you roll a 6, paying money to get an 8, and then sometimes you can take an 8 and spot it to get 2 reds or something random, and then you get to roll the reds, and then, oh, I got a 1. Maybe I have a special power that removes any 7s to get rid of any 1, and then I don't take damage. So it's all about fiddling with the dice, okay? But the basic idea is blue dice go here, red and green dice go here, attrition goes here, damage happens first. If nothing dies, then it hits you back. Defense reduces the damage, and then the greens are removed, and everything spills in, and hopefully you killed the big bad guy. Player versus player combat is very similar. It's just a little bit different depending on whether you use the special quick death player versus player or the regular player versus player combat, where they tend to cancel each other out. And so at the end of the game, sometimes the normal player versus player rules combats can take a little while, but it's kind of fun. So that's the game in a nutshell. Each side, usually, and you're going to have 2 people on each side or 3 people on each side, 2 or 3 characters on each side, taking turns, and you go from turn 1 all the way through turn 30. Okay, so each side gets 15 moves at the most, and you're always getting a little more powerful, moving around and trying to find the most efficient way to kill things so that you gain levels and stuff and get more powerful to then be the first guy to beat the bad guy. There's bad things that happen if you die. It's not terribly bad, but basically you lose a turn, essentially. You have to go back, and you're not healed, and so it costs you time. And since it's really a race to get as powerful as possible and then kill the bad guy, dying is very bad because you've kind of lost some time. In the same way, fighting the blue monsters are kind of a bad thing because you lose some time. And really, that's one of the things I don't like about the game, is that the blue monsters really don't contribute anything. They're just, obstacles. And it would be nice if there's something useful about it. And there is when we talk about the expansion. World of Warcraft expansion, Shadow of War. All right, it's a much smaller box than the original game. All that this contains is a bunch of cards and some rules. There's no plastic pieces, there's no dice, there's no markers even. That's all it is, a whole bunch of cards. There's the big cards that have to do like event cards, and there's a lot of little ones too. And really, if you like the board game, I highly recommend the expansion because I think it makes it better. There's a couple things about this that make the overall game better. And basically, the expansion is more of everything. Okay? On a fundamental level, each character has 10 more spells you can buy, or skills. Each character has 10 more talents to do. So it gives you a lot more variety. I also like that a lot of the talents and spells in this, not all of them, but a few of them more than before, have to do with player versus player combat or non-combat type things, like help you move around the board and things like that, which gives, I think, a little bit different feel from the game. It takes the focus a little bit more off combat, although really the focus of the game is combat, but it makes it a little bit less so. You can have a little bit more diversity in how you take a character. The biggest thing about the expansion that changes is it introduces a blue quest deck. Remember how I didn't like all the blue guys getting in your way? Okay. Well, with the blue quest deck, what happens, you turn it over, and then for various numbers of blue creatures that are on the board, if you kill one of them, all right, or a certain number. Sometimes you have to kill more than one. But if you kill one of them, then you get a very tiny reward, okay? And the tiny rewards come in the form of a little bit of experience, a little bit of gold, and something. This special quest deck here, this special item deck, has lots of little tiny rewards, okay? And there's a little star on it. It's a new kind of toys that you can get, and they're very small. They don't count against the maximum number of things you can have in your backpack at any one time and stuff like that. And so it's kind of a nice little thing. Hey, if you have to kill some blue things, you get a little bit of reward out of it. And some of the new event cards cause you to want to kill some blue things, and so on. So there's more of this sort of encouraging you, rewarding you for killing blue things, which I thought was a real downer in the first game. And so now you get at least something from it. You don't really want to go out and kill them as your sole mission, but at times it can be convenient to kill blue things. And then the other thing that includes in cards that come in, of course, more event cards. The final thing that the expansion adds to the game is this deck of cards called Destiny cards. And there's a couple different things about it. They're kind of like an event deck, but they usually have some global overreaching thing going on, and you always have one of them out. And you flip one over, and it'll say how many turns it stays out, and it affects everything on the board. Sometimes it's a monster that you have to fight, or bad things happen if you don't fight it in time. Sometimes there's a whole, it could be good. Maybe everybody who fights blue guys gets a little extra experience for a while, or something like that. So there's good and bad things can happen in the Destiny card here, Destiny deck. And another cool factor of it is there are different Destiny cards. I mean, there's a basic pack of them, but there are special ones for each of the monsters at the end of the game. So a lot of the monsters at the end of the game, there's no new monsters for the end game here from the expansion, but every monster has some special cards in here which now affect how you might fight the bad guy at the end. A lot of the special monster cards, big boss cards, will come up and say, okay, if you don't do this or fight this guy by the end of the game, the monster at the end of the game is going to be that much harder to kill. And so a lot of these cards give a little bit more theme to the game depending on and it depends on which monster you're fighting at the end of the game. So a particular monster at the end of the game with this deck would feel differently as you play the game rather than just only affecting the very end of the game. So the event deck, the normal deck, adds variety to the game, but this also adds variety to the game, but tends to give it a little bit more thematic flair as, of course, the game goes. Overall, like I said, I really like the expansion. There's more of everything, basically, more talents and spells and options, okay? So it slows you down in terms of trying to decide what you want to do, but I like that. Choices are good. In general, things in this add a little bit of a variety of the types of things you can do. It's not just more ways to mess with your dice, okay? A lot of the new things are new ways to do it, new ways to move around the board, ways to avoid blue creatures, new ways to fight other players. So the player versus player combat is kicked up a little bit of the notch here. And so if you like the base game, I do recommend getting the expansion because I think there's things that I did not like in the original that are just that much better in the expansion. So hopefully you enjoyed a little chat here and you were able to understand everything, and hopefully good luck playing your games. If you're looking for a really nice weighty game to play, look no further than, and I mean weight, I mean actual physical mass here, look no further than World of Warcraft. It's fun for two sides, either 4 players or 6 players, or you can either do 2-player with each player controlling a couple of characters each. All right, and take care.